School District regular board meeting. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A reading of the mission statement. The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. Let's go ahead with roll call.
Mr. Needleman.
Here.
Mr. DeFranco.
Here.
Dr. Etlin. Mrs. Green.
Here.
Mrs. Hubley.
Here.
Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Slapinski. Dr. Taratuski. Here. Mr. Bedard.
Here. One brief announcement. The board at its discretion may videotape all or any portion of public board meetings subject to the limitations set forth in policy 006 meetings. Board meetings will be broadcast on Friday afternoon following the board meeting. Tonight we have a ton of awesome updates and reports from students, parents, administrators, and our own Dr. Yannicone. We also have strict time limitations because, as Dr. Rittenhouse is signaling with his Phillies hat and Phillies shirt, we have a National League Championship Series game this evening. I do feel as though with the performance of the Philadelphia Union, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Phillies, our own boys and girls water polo team winning the state championship for small schools, and our boys varsity soccer, who just won the Suburban 1 League for the first time in history. We are sitting in Springfield Township, the hotbed of sports in the United States of America. So with that, let's get into our reports and information, and I will turn it over first and foremost to our Home and School Partnership.
Those of you who don't know me, I am the co-president of the secondary HSP. Thank you for your time. Tonight, I'm presenting on behalf of both HSPs, and I hate to disappoint. I don't know that I have exciting updates, but I'll give some information. So for the Erdenheim and Enfield HSP, or the Homeschool Partnership, after a few years of limited activities, we are proud to say that we are back to full capacity. So that is very exciting. This year, we'll be offering a wide range of events and programs for our elementary school students and families, including on the 29th of October, the Trunk or Treat Halloween celebration from 4 to 6 p.m. At Enfield Elementary. And in order for us to bring these events to the community, we are asking for volunteers and we need help. If you are interested in learning more, please visit our website at eehsp.org or follow us on Facebook. And then for the secondary, unfortunately, we're not at the point where we can say we're at full capacity. So our update for today is to actually solicit support and volunteers and membership to the secondary HSP. Our membership drive is underway. We are shooting for 100% of families to become paid members to our organization, which is over 700 families. Currently, we sit a little bit under 100, so we have a long way to go. Please join us in our efforts to bring amazing programming and resources to the students. We cannot do this without your support. Our membership is only $20 per family, and it's open to students, family, administration, and staff. So please join us. To the link to support, you can go to our Facebook page, which is Secondary Montgo HSP, and it's also available in the principal updates for middle and high school. And it's not that hard to do, so just please go and take a look at that. Also, this Thursday, October 20th at 7 p.m., we are proud to be hosting a special presentation on social media and the role principals, police, and parents play in protecting our children. This is actually a continuation of the Be a Part of Conversation event that the district had last week on kids and a tech life balance that Dr. Rittenhouse and at our meeting this Tuesday, Dr. Rittenhouse, Mr. Fuller, and Ms. Damian will be providing updates on behalf of the administration. So thank you. We look forward to your support and appreciate your time. Any questions? Awesome.
Sure. All right, next up is our Multicultural Parents Association report with Ms. Angela Beal-Taufi.
Hello, and welcome. Yes, glad to be here. And as a member and family member of secondary AHSP and everything else, EHP, it's great, growing up in the district. So the Multicultural Parents Association has had an exciting start to the school year. In September, with our annual back-to-school picnic and family field trip to the pool exhibit, which actually was awarded the Mid-Atlantic Art Museum award for making an impact. So we were really excited about that. We're glad to say that exhibit will open again next summer in the spring from March 3rd through the summer. And we'd like to go again. And the pool exhibit explored the legacy of segregated pools in the city and the role of public health. This month, we are looking forward to meeting families at our first MPA meeting of the school year, which will be held Thursday, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. in the Erdenheim School Library. We also will be hosting a read aloud event, which will include an age-appropriate story and activity for our K to 5th graders, also held at the Erdenheim School Library on Wednesday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. Finally, we invite parents, teachers, administrators, and staff to join our MPA book club in reading Push Out, The Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools. This important book discussion will be held on Wednesday, November 9th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. You can find more information on all of our meetings and events by checking your child's school weekly e-blast and by visiting our website at www.mpaspringfield.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Awesome. Next, we will head to our highly anticipated student report from Ms. Sarah Herzeg.
On September 23rd, Enfield joined the district in Go for Gold Day in support of raising awareness about Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Staff and students dressed up in golden outfits, and students received calming cards and strips donated from the MIP Foundation. On September 27th and 28th, Action Karate provided a demonstration to all of our second graders. Following the assembly, they led paired classroom presentations. Students enjoyed trying some karate moves as well as learning self-control. Enfield is looking forward to upcoming fall events, including the Trunk or Treat that EHSP will be hosting, as well as our Halloween parade. On Friday, September 23rd and Friday, September 30th, our 5th grade students at Erdenheim and teachers had their annual fall trip to Camp America, where they spent the day learning the importance of team building. Erdenheim also participated in the Go for Gold Day and went above and beyond by hosting a grade level kickball tournament. As a 5th grade team, students and teachers were able to raise $580 for the MIP Foundation. 3rd and 4th grade students participated in a Science Explorers Assembly, where students had the opportunity to serve as the scientist helpers and participate in the process of building a hypothesis and completing experiments. Our 4th grade team had an opportunity to visit the Orland Courthouse. During their visit, students had the chance to review important United States documents and participate in a mock trial with Judge McGill. The music department is working hard with the students in chorus and band, and they're excited to share their talents with the school community. At the middle school, flex schedules are being created for students. On even days in the cycle, Spartan block time has been reserved for a variety of interventions for students. Staff look at performance data to help create a flexible grouping for targeted interventions. This might mean emotional support, IEP goal review, reading support, executive functioning, and much more. Staff are creating schedules for students next week. The high school recently inducted 64 seniors into National Honor Society. For the first time ever, the boys soccer team was announced the Suburban 1 League champions. The team looks forward to continuing their season and playoffs that begin next Wednesday. Girls soccer is honoring their seniors in the stadium Thursday, October 20th against Lower Moreland. 2 members of the golf team competed as individuals at the District 1 Championship. 1 golfer qualified for the state championship. Cross country is competing at the Suburban 1 League Championship this Friday at Lehigh University. Water polo won small school states that were held at Springfield this past weekend. Girls field hockey is honoring their seniors tonight on Nixon Field. And Spartan football is ranked 3rd in District 1 and hopes to continue their success at their combined senior night game with the cheerleaders this Friday.
Awesome update. Thank you very much. And was able to see some of the field hockey senior night tonight. So that was awesome to see. All right. Ms. Slapinski was going to give a property committee meeting report update. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend tonight. She was detained at a conference for her work. Is there any other volunteers to update, or should we move that to our next agenda? To next agenda, Ms. Green, if you can capture that. All right, wonderful. Then we will move on to our administrative reports for both Spartan Spotlight and Superintendent Update. I will turn it over to Dr. Mary Jo Yannico.
Thank you. I just want to for our Education Foundation Dine and Donate. It looked like it was going to be a very successful event. There were a lot of families there with us this evening. Because we had so many other reports this evening, I thought I'd go right to our spotlight. So I'm going to introduce middle school principal, Mr. Zach Fuller, who's going to share some information about a new program at the middle school this year in positive behavior intervention supports. And I will bring up the slides for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
My report is very exciting. The beginning of this year and over the summer, we did a lot of thinking about culture at the middle school and how do you build culture? How do you help make people proud of their culture? One of our district themes this year is pride. So how do you connect kids to school? How do you make them feel like they're in a place where they belong? And we settled on a concept called PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, and developed a school-wide positive behavior intervention and support plan that we call Pride Points. So the idea behind it, this is not working. Can you click for me?
I got you.
All right, so we stole Dr. Mack's acronym from Erdenheim, the PRIDE acronym, which stands for Perseverance, Respect, Integrity, Dependability, and Empathy. We thought it was a nice tie over from Erdenheim to the middle school. And then we've tied points to exhibiting behaviors that are associated with these ideas. And so what we did at the beginning of the year was we rolled out, as we were developing the Spartan block schedule, we had a lot of time with students in homerooms. So we rolled out some development for students around what are these things? How do we show these things in school? And we talked with staff about what does that look like in all of the different areas of our middle school. And so we thought about, what does it mean to be perseverant in the cafeteria, for example, right? Well, make healthy choices every day and remain in my seat, even when everybody's up and moving around and I really want to go talk to my friends, right? That's an example, right? What does it look like to be dependable in the hallways? Move it along and get there on time, right? Even when maybe some people are at their lockers or there's some temptation to stay in the hallway. So we shared this with students too. We cut out all these squares. We had the students paste the squares into the areas and think about where do these things fit and what does that look like? Of course, you can't have points without rewards, right? So our middle school students are making the transition in middle school from this extrinsic motivation, right? Like I should do it because I might get an extrinsic reward, to intrinsic motivation. And so if we're going to design something for every student at the middle school, it's got to come with some extrinsic rewards. And so these are just a few examples of the rewards that you can purchase with Pride Points at our school. Lip sync battling me at lunch is one of them. Mr. Payne has Guitar Hero that he has, so you can Guitar Hero battle Mr. Payne. You can be athletic director for a day. We have high school football tickets that we can give away, VIP lunch line access, all these little things over on the side, snacks, poppers. We have lunch with Officer Boone from the Springfield Township Police Department. We have all kinds of things, little and big, tangible and intangible, that we're rewarding students with. The most popular thing is not up here. It is actually a signed copy of the morning announcements, autographed by me. That is what they want. As soon as they get 40 points, they ask me to autograph the announcements. I'm not sure why. It's a piece of paper. This comes with all kinds of tracking, right? It comes with all kinds of data tracking. This is the screenshot from about 9 o'clock this morning, when 326 of these points had been handed out, 326 positive interactions logged. You can see yesterday's total up there too, 869. And that stands in comparison. If we can acknowledge 800, almost 900 positive interactions a day, if we can reward students, if we can point them out, if we can say that they're noticed, then the 40 discipline referrals that we have so far this year sort of operate in context and give us some context for what our culture is. You can also see we can break down by student, staff member assigning. I'm the league leader, by the way. I have over 4,000 points this year distributed. Perseverance, respect, integrity, dependability, and empathy. We can see where we're making these gains. Students have QR codes that are attached to their Chromebooks. So as they walk around, a teacher who has the app, I don't even have to know your name. I just have to scan your Chromebook to give you a point. You can see how many we've given out so far this year. It's cut off a little bit, but this is 6, 7, and 8. And so if you're reading that right, you see almost 30,000 pride points given out this year to document 30,000 positive interactions at our school. We asked kids about it, and I wrote down their answers. They are students who, shall we say, could very, very much benefit by this program and extrinsic reward for positive behavior, all the way up to students who are already intrinsically motivated and wouldn't need this program, but for the fact that we're doing it school-wide. So pride points, this is a 7th grader who wished to remain anonymous. He was like, do not put me out there with the board. But I will tell you that at one point this year, he was our school-wide point leader. He had 85 points at one time when it was ridiculous to have 85 points. And he said, pride points have helped me remember what I need to do because my aide has put a reward in that helps me get stuff for my video game. I know that if I do what I'm supposed to do, I can buy stuff for my game. And so part of what we're giving out are little $5 or $10 Roblox gift cards, which was popular for this student and motivating. So another student, pride points are good because it feels like we are working for something. Now, when you do something right, you get a point. Before, nothing would happen. This is the student who he was the winner of our Wawa gift card raffle. When you get at least 1 point in there, you get entered into a raffle. We've circulated to pretty much every retail location in the township and gotten gift certificates, cards, all kinds of goodies for them to be raffled off. Here's some other ones. I don't really spend my pride points, but I like to scroll down and read why I got the pride points. I think it shows me how good I am doing in school. And then another student, I just like to collect as many as I can. So I'm pretty proud of our students' answers. I think they represent sort of the whole spectrum of why this is a good thing. Students can see their pride points when they log in. They can see the points they got. They can see the reason they got the points too. So the teachers type comments when they give out points about all the good things that are happening at the middle school. I will also say that our discipline numbers now at the middle school are at the number that we worked for 2.5 years from the time I got here till the time the pandemic struck. We're following that line now. And I'm also proud of that. What's next? We want to incorporate some student voice in creating rewards. Students have come up to us informally and asked for things to go into the rewards that they can purchase, including Spartanware, which we just talked with Kara about. How are we going to get, so we don't have to buy 9,000 sweatshirts in all different sizes. How can we make this work for students to get Spartanware in the raffle? Teachers can open their own individual stores. My particular child, my child in a different school district has something like this. And she really goes for the teacher rewards much more than the administrative rewards, the people that she spends time with. And so in the second quarter, we're going to start opening up individual teacher stores. We want to work with teams to focus on particular behaviors. We built that matrix. So we want to work with teams to pick behaviors within that matrix to focus on, so that I know this week it's about getting moving in the hallway, and people that I see moving toward class and not stopping to chat with their friends, well, they're going to get pride points as they come in the door to my classroom, for example. Continue to remind students to spend their rewards. We have a hoarding problem with these pride points. I'm not really sure what the problem is. It may be that it's connected to student voice in creating rewards and having teachers open stores. We may just be just a little bit tuned out about what they want. But they want to get them, but they also want to save them until they can buy something really good. Maybe they're saving up to do a lip sync battle with me. They can also, at 500 points, I'll shave my facial hair however they want me to do it within reason. And then events and raffles are also a possibility here. And so we have told you about the raffles, but we also can create events with threshold numbers of points. So for example, the day before the Thanksgiving, half day before the Thanksgiving holiday, we're looking on a Pride Point event so that all the students who have earned above a particular threshold of points get to come out to a community building event outside. And we're going to put that threshold low enough that it's inspiring and not exclusive. So that's my story about Pride Points. So far, I wanted to wait until the honeymoon was over in terms of discipline to confidently stand before you and say it's working. I do sense a difference. I think that if you asked our students, they would say they sense a difference. Many of you have students at the middle school, and I would say, ask them. I think this and other things are making a difference at the school. So thanks for your time. And I'll answer any questions either here or offline, depending on what you want to do.
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to congratulate the entire middle school team, and under Mr. Fuller's leadership, they did a lot of thinking last spring. We all know that across the country, middle schoolers seem to have the greatest impact, negative impact, as a result of the pandemic. And so they did a lot of thinking as a team about how to turn the corner on school climate at the middle school, and we are seeing some really positive results. So I want to compliment the team and our middle schoolers who are responding really well this year to the program. So thank you. And clearly, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to have this.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to make a comment that this is a lot of work. I mean, I work in a school district. I've been in middle schools. I see what they do. And this is a lot of work to have teachers really intentionally focusing on positive behavior. That's amazing. And really, I just want to commend all the work that you've done and the work that your teachers are doing every day to try to shift that culture.
In the words of Mr. Kelly, our 8th grade team leader, we're going to make it rain Pride.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like 3 positives to a negative, or 5 positives to a negative. So if you're sticking with that ratio, you're exceeding that. That's excellent.
I just also wanted to just comment on this particular program. Now I'm familiar with that. It is an excellent avenue to improve climate in your building. And so it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And so definitely cheering on the teachers. I'm just wondering what their impression is in terms of that constant interaction with students, because it really is a two-way street. The students, they're getting the pride points and so forth, but I would hope that the teachers are feeling equally reinforced at the fact that they can be in the hallway, have a student walk by that's not even their student, and still have a connection with them. And, so connection is everything in middle school, whether it's a student in your classroom or just a random student in the hallway. And so I just was curious as to what some of the teacher impressions are.
I would confidently say that the teachers are, by and large, satisfied with the direction of the middle school culture and behavior, and that they are, by and large, contributing to the process. I can run reports and see who is involved in this, and it seems to me to be a school-wide effort. And so their impressions I would say that their impressions are really favorable. They give out, 1,000 pride points a day. So it seems to be working. We are going to be starting to reward teachers also at our faculty meetings. I have a reward that I've been building myself in my garage. Let's just leave it there. For our teachers, our leading teachers in the distribution of pride points across our building. We have a few people who haven't embraced the program the way that we would like to see them do it, but I think that the proof of the pudding is in the taste, right? So I think that success will encourage them to become a part of the program. Yeah. Was that helpful? Did that answer your question? Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Any other questions? I just want to be heard. That's why I'm sitting here.
This opportunity, Ms. Bronson.
Oh, you guys coming. I just wanted to actually also highlight how much I appreciate the connective pride from what's the concept really small. It makes it feel like it's a district, not like, oh, the high school is getting, the middle school is getting good. Be very overwhelmed.
Yeah. So Courtney Mack, Dr. Mack's assistant principal, came to our middle school the other day and actually awarded a pride point through me to a student that she saw making a positive contribution at our school. It was actually a student who argued himself back into lunch detention with me. He said, oh no, I do have a detention today. I should stay so I can serve it. I said, you sure? Yeah, I'm definitely sure. She said, that's integrity. And she did. Us across buildings.
I do want to add, being on the board is obviously an elected position, meaning we represent the voice of parents and taxpayers in the district. And last year, a lot of parents came to you and the administration, Dr. Yannicone, with feedback. And one of the pieces of feedback was a feeling that there was a focus on negative behavior. And I think turning that around on its head, very intentionally focusing on positive behaviors that reinforce pride of the district has been an excellent approach. So as a parent of a middle schooler and as a representative of the taxpayers, I do want to thank you for those efforts.
Thank you. That's not lost on us, but I'm glad you said it because I didn't. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. And then we have the last presentation that I'd love to introduce with Dr. Johnston and our building principals. We have been working on data analysis for the first few months of the school year relative to standardized testing results, going back to last year and now incorporating our first quarter data results. And so Dr. Johnston's going to lead off and I'll share my screen again. You should have that.
For the first speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. It's a very awkward setup. I'm going to pass you this for a second. Thank you. You see if it's working.
I can click for you.
Okay. So we're pleased to be able to be with you this evening. Our team wants to share with you a variety of data points. We have 4 major sections to this presentation, setting the stage and giving you some context to where we've been and where we are right now. I want to share with you a little bit what data we're looking at and how we're looking at that data, those data. Our building principals have prepared for you a summary of the data that's specific to their building, and then really summarizing the analysis that their team has done and their action steps. And then we'll wrap it up with sort of the overall district connections and themes that we've got.
Okay, so
Dr. Yannicone's going to go first.
Ma'am. So I'm going to set the stage for you just briefly. I also want to point out that we're trying to give an overview this evening. On Monday evening at 5 o'clock, we have an academic affairs meeting where we'll be drilling down on some of these data points even more specifically, but we wanted to provide the full board a general overview at this point in the school year. So just as a point of priorities and messaging, I want to share with the public as well as with the board that over the last 2 years of the pandemic, I was very specific in identifying for the staff that performance on standardized testing was not a priority of the district. While we absolutely wanted our teachers to be able to concentrate on state standards and on our published curriculum and to be able to deliver in those two items, we had some other priorities. So I just want to refresh everybody's memory that in 2020, 2021, our focus was on health and safety. We began the year in fully virtual school. We transitioned at the end of the first trimester to a hybrid 2-day-a-week in school, 3-day-a-week out of school system. And then we transitioned that spring in the third trimester to a 4-day-a-week schedule with Wednesdays as an at-home day. And so that year, the state of Pennsylvania actually bypassed all standardized testing because they believed it was not appropriate to be providing that at the time. So you'll see some year gaps in some of the data. That is by design. In addition, last year, we transitioned to our 5-day in-person schedule. And at the time, we focused in 3 themes for the year. Personalization, meaning specifically looking at our individual students. How are they coming out of the pandemic? How are they recovering with their families? Any impacts that had on their family's health and their individual health. We focused on mental health to a great degree, and we focused on a sense of belonging, restoring for our students who'd been out of school consistently for 5 days for about 18 months. So we concentrated in areas beyond standardized testing. This year, I've communicated to the staff that we'd like to resume our focus on academic achievement. And so we have some goals, which the principals will share with you, some action steps in order to move forward. But I did want to share that with you and also encourage anybody from the public as well as members of the board that next Monday evening, we have an academic affairs meeting that will share some more drill down data as well. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Yannico. So our overview for this evening and our purpose of coming together was to really build on the reports we've provided to you in the last 2 years. Last September, I was here and I provided a summary to you of our literacy and math data as we understood it at that time, using that feedback to really take a look at what we wanted to share with you this year. More than just me sharing it is the ownership and the engagement with our building principals, because in reality, they have the closest hands to the teachers and to the children to make sure that we're doing the things that we can to ensure the best in all of our learners. The other purposes that we have for this evening is to make sure that we are clear on the information on how our students are doing. Baseline is baseline. If we want to talk about improvement, we have to first know where we are right now. How are we doing on a variety of standard measures? And then we want to really share with you that we're not ones to just get data and then just be like, okay, well, that's good. We looked at it, thought about it, wondered about it, and then put some plans in place at each of our buildings and across our district to address areas where we see opportunities for growth. So we'll share those with you also. So as you know, I'm here with our Dr. Yannico and I are here this evening with our building principals, Dr. Markle, Dr. McLaurin, Mr. Fuller, and Dr. Rittenhouse. And between the 6 of us, it's our pleasure to give this information to you today. What I want to do is provide a structure of how we thought would make the most sense. Each building sort of has a very similar framework. They're going to share with you the data coming from their building, particularly in the areas of reading and mathematics. Those are the 2 core areas we're focusing on. And then they're going to talk with you about how those same students did last year on similar measures. So you'll see results from last fall, at the end of the year last spring, where we have PSSA standardized testing results or keystone tests. We'll share those results with you, and then we'll show you their fall performance in our benchmarks this fall. And then they'll provide you a summary of what they've taken away and their action steps. So each person will do the same thing, same structure, so that it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. This is all a good idea until I can't turn the page. There we go. All right. So our data comes from 2 sources, but we wanted to really focus this time. When I came before, we talked about MTSS and how we're intervening and attendance and behavioral data. Those items are important, but they are within a normal limit at this time. So what we really wanted to focus on the academic component of our report. I want to share with you 2 different kinds of standardized testing. The first is within our control. These are our local or district measures. We've selected them and we determine the timeframes of when they are assigned and completed. Our universal screening that we use is primarily in reading and math. At the youngest level, we use a STAR early learning, or early literacy, excuse me, for kindergarten and first grade. For grades 2 through 9, STAR 360 in ELA and mathematics. And then Acadians is an early reading assessment that we use K to 3rd grade. All of those are selected by us. We could use other things. These are the ones our district has decided are the most important and best fit for our learners. The STAR Early Literacy and STAR 360 are a class, the class takes it at the same time using a screen, either their Chromebook or their iPad. The Acadians measure is a one-on-one assessment done with an educator sitting with the child to do the assessment. And then there's the famous standardized measures that are assigned to us by the Commonwealth. For grades 3 through 8, that's the PSSA, that's administered in English language arts in grades 3 through 8, in mathematics, and in grades 4 and 8 in science and technology. The Pennsylvania Keystone exams are end of course exams in algebra, biology, and literature. And those scores are then gathered and tallied and held until the cohort is in 11th grade. And then they publish the 11th grade scores as a cohort. So those assessments are different. They are provided in a room that may or may not be with the child's teacher. It may or may, there is no resources provided. The room is changed and the environment is different. It is scheduled at a time that the Commonwealth has announced it will be administered. So whether it's good for kids on this district or in that place, it's administered around the same time in the Commonwealth. And our students perform towards those state standards. It is a multi-day test. So we talked about STAR, which is 20 minutes. This test is multiple days in language arts and math. All right, so I'm going to get started, turning it over. We're going to start from the youngest and move to the oldest. So Dr. Markle's going to get us started. Not just that kind of oldest, the kids are the oldest. I mean, it may also be seasoned, also very nice. You can see we like each other very much. Dr. Markle.
I'll take it. Hi, everybody. I'm here to proudly present our data from Enfield for our kindergarten, first and second grade students. And just as Dr. Johnson mentioned, we're showing 3 different grade levels. So if you look, there's kindergarten, first and second grade. As you see, the kindergarten only has 1 data point because this is their first time here with us within the district. So that is their fall score. So 75% of our kindergarten students met the benchmark for our Acadians testing. And then if you look over to the first grade, that orange is still showing the fall scores. So our current first grade, that 78% of our students have met the benchmark of where we hope them to be at that time. But you can also see those were the scores from their kindergarten year. So that light blue is how they performed in the fall of kindergarten year. And then the dark blue is how they performed in the spring of kindergarten year. And then in the last section, that's second grade. So the same thing, that orange score, 81% of our current second graders have met the benchmark for Acadians. And then the light blue and dark blue are showing the scores from their first grade experience from the fall and the spring. And then our next data set too, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, our kindergarten and first graders take the STAR Early Literacy Assessment, is another reading assessment that tests our reading and phonological awareness skills. And so as you can see with kindergarten, it's the first time taking this assessment. So at this time, 67% of our students have met that benchmark. And then for our first grade, same thing. You can see the orange score, 75% of our current first graders have met the benchmark. And then you can see the previous scores. As the slide before and even the slide here, you can see a slight dip from some of the spring scores from the fall, but that's not uncommon to see as the standards increase and the rigor increases from year to year. And then for our second grade students, so they are moved beyond the STAR literacy from kindergarten and first, and they take the STAR reading and STAR math. It's 2 separate assessments. So now you see 4 scores, starting with the orange, that is the fall, that's the reading score. So 72% of our second graders have met that benchmark for reading. And then the light blue and the dark blue, that is showing their early literacy scores from when they were in first grade. That new color, the turquoise color, that is the math score. So that is the first time they're taking a STAR math assessment. And that's indicating that 75% of our second graders met the benchmark. So we took a look at all that data and we made some plans of, what do we want to do to help support our students? So a couple things, as you know, early literacy is such a huge, important focus. So we're always looking to see how we can develop our students to be great readers and really instill a love of learning. And part of that is helping to develop rich vocabulary and self-expression and building their comprehension. But in order to do that, we have to really make sure that we build the phonics and phonemic awareness skills as well. So we have our universal screeners. We assess them 3 times a year. We just shared the fall data and some of the data from before. And as a team, we have data review meetings. So we just finished our first data review meeting where we're looking at the results. So we're really proud of our scores and the number of students that are meeting those benchmarks. But then we have to determine what are we doing for the students that aren't meeting those benchmarks. And we identify some students who could benefit from a reading intervention that's given from one of our reading specialists or reading aides. And so those students will meet in small groups for the next 6 to 8 weeks with a targeted reading intervention. In addition, it's covered, but the red dot, we're excited. We have a new curriculum resource. It's called Geodes. We had an opportunity to buy this resource as a way to strengthen our reading instruction. And it's a nice balance because it still goes over the foundational reading skills that we're teaching each week and the decoding skills, but it's also full of very rich and meaningful language. And so our teachers are excited to have this resource to connect to what we're trying to do with early literacy. And then another thing that we've really focused on this year is we're having content-focused grade level meetings. It's really important to discuss the universal screeners, but we want to connect those results to also what we're seeing in the classroom and the results of the classroom assessments as well. So we're having conversations based on ELA and math and some of the content areas as well to see what trends we're seeing and what other supports. And it's a really nice collaborative approach we're having with our teachers. As you guys know, anytime you're part of a team and can work together, there's a greater outcome. And so we're really proud of the work that our teachers are doing. And then finally, we know early literacy is so important, but we also want to have an emphasis on math. And so this year in particular, we're very excited. We have identified a new role with a math specialist. And this person is really helping to take a look at our math instruction. We're determined here at Enfield that we have really good data on early literacy. Now we need to get a little bit more data on early math. And so we're going to be looking at some of the different math universal screeners we can use with our kindergarten, first and second grade students, and then also come up with a plan of how we can target support for them. Okay. Right now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. McLaurin.
Good evening. So similar to the data you saw at Enfield, our data tells a story as well. One of the things I want to start off by sharing is that, we're extremely proud of our students and our staff. The students that we see here are students who have experienced some learning gaps as a result of the pandemic. But there's a story to be found as you take a closer look at our data. I want to point your attention, if I can, to the 2 left, and you can't see the grade levels, I apologize. But if you look at each set of the data columns, the first to the left, it shows you the fall and the spring. And if you look closely, what you'll see is that each cohort that we have showed growth in terms of numbers of students who were meeting the benchmark. What's also exciting to see for us, if you go to the far right, where the students are beginning right now is actually higher than where they were last year. So if we can continue the pattern of improving and increasing the number of students who are meeting the standard as we did last year, we're excited for where we can go. The one orange space that you see for ELA, that's our PSSA score. And there's a discrepancy there, and that's something we'll take a closer look at. Can we go to the next slide? Here's a similar story with math. In particular, if you take a look at each grade level, you're still seeing either that increase from fall to spring from last year, as well as where our students are beginning. Overall, the average of our students in grades 3, 4, and 5 were around 79 to 80% meeting the standard for proficiency, which is really exciting for us. One of the things we have to continue to explore is how do we take that number of students who are meeting the standard, maintain, but also add more students to meeting those expected end of year standards. And that's some work that we have to do as a team. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But once again, what you do see is our third graders that we have now didn't take the PSSA. That orange color that you see, that's our fourth grade and our fifth grade math PSSA score. And once again, we see a discrepancy between our STAR assessment as well as our PSSA assessment. So as we shared in the previous two slides, you saw a discrepancy between the PSSA and our STAR assessments. But one thing that's really important to note is that as a district and as a school community, we're really competitive within the county and within the state. Overall, we're right around where our local communities are performing and the state is performing, if not higher. The one area that we have to take a closer look at for us is specifically that fifth grade where we see that deficit loss. But once again, for us in our school community, those are the students who we've had since second grade through fifth grade, and they've been through a lot. But we've going to put in some work to make sure that we can target those students and really find ways to support them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as it relates to our action steps. But overall, it's really nice to see that we are competitive within the county average and the state average in both content areas. So as I mentioned, we are noticing a discrepancy between our STAR and our PSSA scores. That's something we will continue to take a closer look at. But it's nice to see that on the benchmark that our students are taking 3 times a year, we're seeing a steady increase from fall, winter to spring. And we're really excited about that work. So we're going to continue to dig into that to identify specifically why we're noticing that discrepancy between those two particular scores. We're also want to look more closely at our curriculum-based assessments. We have a really good data warehousing system in Linkit where we can see all of our students' performance over the course of the year. What we want to be able to do is to utilize that more effectively so it can help tell the story of our students' progress over the course of the year. And when we notice throughout the course of the year where students are performing, that also helps to inform us overall how are they performing as it relates to STAR, but also can give us a better projection on how they might meet the standards towards the end of the year on the PSSA test. One thing that's also worth noting is that for the first time in our district, this was the first time our students took the PSSA test online. Taking online assessments, it's not new, but given as what Dr. Johnson mentioned at the very beginning, the assessment itself took a longer period of time, more than 3 days, where the STAR assessment is about a 20 to 30-minute assessment. So one of the areas we have to do in addition with the curriculum-based assessments and taking a closer look at the online assessments is making sure that we help support our students with being able to increase their ability to have stamina to complete those types of assessments because they're longer. We also want to really focus and provide targeted support in our assessments across the grade level. One of the things that we noted as we look back at our data, given when we went through the pandemic, we made lots of adjustments to support students so they can be successful because there were learning gaps. One of the things that we're doing this year is we're going to work specifically in math and ELA is to make sure that our data, our assessments are consistent in each grade level. So that the expectations and the rigor that students experience, we're making sure that we're preparing them so that when they do have to sit and take a longer test, they do have that stamina because they've been exposed to more rigorous content. We're also going to focus in on math as we saw that between the two subject areas, that's the area that right now we're not performing as well as we'd like to, but we're still competitive. We want to make sure that when we're looking at our assessments, taking a look at our pacing to make sure that over the course of the school year, our students are gaining meaningful exposure to all the standards so that when they see them, they're able to apply the skills over the course of the year. And so that may consist of our team members in our building where we have team members focusing on math planning, looking at realigning particular units to make sure that our students are exposed to appropriate material. We also, as Dr. Markle mentioned, we were able to add in a math specialist in addition to our reading specialist, and we were able to just recently have our fall data day reviews. And what we're looking at is trying to narrow our focus and provide focus for our teachers, knowing specifically what should we target for our cohorts of students and identifying areas of weakness and looking to track that over the next 6 to 8 weeks to be intentional about our work in small group instruction and during classroom instruction so that we can see growth and progress over the course and time. The last area that we want to focus in on as a building is given the fact that the students in front of us have changed over the past 4 years. And what we'd like to be able to do is to have our staff identify specifically what are areas that they feel like they need professional growth in and work really, really hard to provide them with meaningful opportunities to gain access to professionals to support them so that it might transform their instructional practices in the classroom to better support students. And so we feel like this plan allows us to target both our students and our staff but we're really excited for where we are. We're not settling. We have some work to do, but the fact that we're competitive within the county and within the state, it's something to be excited about given the challenges that our students face, but we still have some work to do. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Fuller.
All right, thanks. I'm back. These are our Springfield Township Middle School ELA performance numbers. You will see when you look at them that we do not have the same problem in terms of predictability from our STAR assessments, which are all of the blue bars, to our PSSA, which is the orange bar. They are relatively predictive of our performance. You're also going to see all the way on the left in each grouping is last fall's number. And all the way to the right in each grouping is last fall's number. Both are for STAR assessment. So you can see a decline from fall to fall, which is really what I look at when I'm making sense of the data, right? Like if we're going to measure, we should measure fall to fall or spring to spring and not fall to spring when students have had some learning loss, right? So we have some work to do, and you can see it based on the data that we see here. We see engaged students in our classrooms, and we see hardworking teachers in our classrooms. And so the problem with this data is to account for the falling scores within our ELA curriculum, right? How can we have engaged students and hardworking teachers and still be losing skills, right, over time? And so that's a problem. I have a possible answer for it when we get to the end. Let's take a look at math. In math, you see an entirely different story. If we look at fall to fall, if we look over the course of the year, fall to spring, you can see growth in our math, and you can see that it's a little bit more within acceptable tolerances as far as I'm concerned. If we go spring, 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 71, 77, 87, that's a nice arc in our math performance. You can also see that we do not have predictive power from STAR to PSSA within our math curriculum, right? So it doesn't seem to be very predictive when 87% of our students in the spring are scoring at or above benchmark in math, and then 45% wind up proficient on the PSSA. We have some sort of problem there, and we have to dig into that too. If you want to flip that. There's also two different stories in terms of our performance against state and county averages in ELA and math. And you can see that in ELA in 6th grade, we're sort of just right close to the state average, but not as high as the county. In 7th grade, we're somewhere between the state and county averages. And then in 8th grade, we outperform the state, right? And so that's an added monkey wrench in terms of data, in terms of how do we figure that out? What does that mean? Again, I have some proposed answers for you a little bit later. In math, while I'm not pleased at 45% of anything, and I believe that if we have a standards-based curriculum, hardworking teachers and engaged kids, we should do a lot better than 45% no matter what. If you compare those numbers to the county and state averages, we're blowing those numbers out of the water at every grade level. And so that's another tidbit in terms of math. I think it's important to put it in context. Again, there's work to do there. That means fewer than half of our students are proficient on this math test. But it also means that we're outperforming our state and county middle schools. Let's flip the slide. So when I thought about the ELA data, what I think is that there are a few things at work. One is if we're declining over time, right? And if it takes us a middle school career to outperform our county averages, there may be some alignment between, there may be a misalignment between what we teach and what we test and what the state standards are within our curriculum. We are lucky enough to have a curriculum review this year for ELA, and that gives us a nice opportunity to work with our ELA department to open up what we do in the classroom every day and talk about how it is related to state standards. Because no matter how creative the curriculum is, no matter how many creative tasks we do, no matter how engaging it is, if it's not aligned, it's just sort of fun activities, right? We want to make sure that there's alignment there. We've also noticed in ELA that our vocabulary and conventions, which are two components of the anchor standards of ELA, we perform well in. But when we look at things like looking at the relationship between key ideas and details or text-dependent analysis, those are the places where we fall down. So we're really good at identifying vocabulary words and their definitions. We're really good at knowing where the comma goes. We fall down when it comes to reading something and understanding what it means. And so as we do this curriculum realignment, it's something that we need to focus on. Math results sort of tell the same story in terms of where we are strong and where we are weak in terms of anchors. When we think about the number system, arithmetic, right, we are doing well. When we think about geometry and probability, right, math with meaning, then we do a little less well, and we need to focus on those areas. Two strategies for that. One is to look at the curriculum and align it in ELA. In math, it's more about identifying where the learning gaps are for students and grouping those students with our experts, the math teachers, to address that math content. And so we've redesigned our flex period during the last 40 minutes of the day, every other day, to be more need-based. So now instead of going back to homeroom, our students have been grouped according to their academic needs and go to a teacher who can support those academic needs. For students who do not have academic needs, we look at other needs such as executive functioning or enrichment, all the things that Sarah talked about in our middle school update. We do notice a discrepancy in terms of students who perform well on STAR, individual students who perform well on STAR, seem not to perform as well on PSSA. Students who get good grades, test well on our universal screener, and are in our high-level math classes, somehow, some of them are not doing well on PSSA. And so we really want to think this year about our messaging around the test. We've done very little of hyping up the PSSA. With our students and talking to them about its importance and what the test is used for, both for them and for their school. We also want to think about testing conditions. You heard Dr. Johnston talk about, these are students who are taking a test in an unfamiliar place, sometimes with unfamiliar people. And so if we can give thought to the conditions of the test, we may encourage students to try. And then also thinking about leveraging relationships, right? If my teacher now that we've done this flex grouping exercise, is familiar with my data and my teacher can talk to me about my math scores, right? We may see students care a little bit more about that. If they know that Mrs. Smith, my math teacher, is actually looking at these results, that might encourage them to try a little harder. So we want to encourage those conversations between teachers and students about their performance. So there's a lot of work to do at the middle school. There's some recovery to be done at the middle school. There's some curriculum alignment, some remediation, and then some relationship building and messaging about the test that we need to do. But I'm fairly confident that we can do it and lift some of these scores up a little bit. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rittenhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Full. It's my pleasure this evening to discuss scores and provide a review of our keystones in literature, biology and algebra, and the STAR test. I know that's maybe difficult to see from where you are, but from left to right, the blue bars, this is our ELL performance in ninth grade, and this is for our current ninth graders. So from left to right, the three bars are the 3 times we gave the STAR test in ELA, twice at the middle school, and then once here at the high school in the fall. And then that middle orange bar are the PSSA scores in ELA. And again, this is our current ninth grade here at the high school. We had consistent scores among the 4 tests and no discrepancy between the STAR and PSSAs. So there certainly was an alignment there, and it's a source of pride at the high school. The next slide would be math performance. Again, ninth grade, this slide shows our scores again for ninth grade for STAR and PSSA. Again, bar 1, blue, 2, and then the 4th bar is the 3 times, twice at the middle school, once here in the fall at the high school for the STAR test in math. And then that middle bar is that orange bar is a PSSA. We had consistent scores amongst the STAR tests, again, administered 3 times a year. And it shows that it's a dependable screener. However, we're concerned and we'll focus on the discrepancy and incongruence between the PSSA score of 41% versus about an average of 70% on the STAR screener. And that is math performance for STAR and PSSA. Our Keystone assessments, algebra, and this is for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, taken between grades for grades 7, 8, 9, and 10 for algebra. Literature is a pure high school test, is taken in 10th grade. Biology in 9th and 10th grade. Typically, if you take honors biology in 9th grade, you'll take the Keystone then. And then if you take academic biology in 10th grade, Dr. Johnson spoke about this. While there's a variety when the test times when the test is taken, the scores are banked and reported as the cohort at the end of the 11th grade year. And that gives you the examples. The 2022 scores reflect the performance of the best score by the current senior class. And again, these typically, the students take this at the end of their course. So if they're taking biology right at the end of the course, they'll take the test. These are Keystone scores in literature and a source of pride in each year, except this last year, 2022. We exceeded the state average with the exception of 2022, just a little below from left to right. And as it was mentioned, the test was not administered in 2020. Keystone performance in biology, again, not administered in 2020, again, left to right. You can see each year we exceeded the averages, the state averages every year. Again, a source of pride for the high school. Scores have declined slightly, and a goal this year is to increase the score and reverse this trend. And in algebra, and this is a combination of middle and high school scores. Again, you can take in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade. It's all the students in the district have taken it. It's when they're typically enrolled in the algebra course. We have mixed results with algebra, and this would be an area of focus and review by our team, by the math department, by the high school team, with 2 years higher than state averages, or rather 1 year higher than state averages, and then a couple years underneath the state averages, and certainly mixed results. We have 2 data days. The first one was about a week ago. In fact, it was in this room where we looked at the math department, looked at the algebra scores, and then October 31st, we have another half day in service where we'll look at the performance on Algebra 1 and the Keystone. And our analysis and action steps. We're real focus at the high school on testing conditions, raising awareness of the test, and a focus on the importance of the test. And going from left to right on each line, overall performance, Keystones have decreased, but I think it's 7 out of 12 areas they have exceeded state numbers. Our testing conditions, that's one thing we're going to focus on, creating smaller testing sites, spaces, building wide attention and support for the testing process and impact. And really just, like I said, raising awareness. We have a student advisory, Dr. Yannick and Dr. Johnson, myself, and 15 of our closest friends. We meet about once every month, I guess once a month. And they really spoke about wanting to know more about the Keystone, the purpose of the test, et cetera. And we really listened to that feedback starting to raise that awareness. Act 55 is requiring us in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that we will record the results of the Keystone on the transcript. And that'll actually be another data point on high school transcripts. And we're working with students and families to understand its impact. Staff awareness, I've shared the results with the staff. This is one of our building goals, to look at our Keystone exams and improve those. And we've been educating the staff. They'll see this similar presentation at the faculty meeting tomorrow, which will be in the same room. And then finally, professional learning for faculty on best practices to target student needs. So that is the STAR and Keystone scores and analysis for Springfield Township High School. Over to Dr. Johnston.
Thanks, team. You did a great job. I know that's been a lot of information, and but we thought it was really important to provide a really comprehensive understanding of how we're doing so that we can be benchmarking our work this year towards where we want to be. And to do that, we have to first know where we are right now. So overall, our summary that the key takeaways are that we really are looking at 3 components when we're talking about test performance. Test preparation, so our curriculum and instructional practices, the conditions under which they take the test and the exam, and then how they're performing during that exam and the overall results. We're working for opportunities to increase frontline staff. You heard all the principals talk about those data meetings, really working directly with the teachers on their own students' data to take a look at how they're doing, where we're having impact, and where we have opportunities for growth. And finally, we continue our very comprehensive curriculum review process. Mr. Fuller and Dr. Rinst, we're in the process of ELA revision at the secondary level, science at the secondary level. So we're using these results to really key in on where are our strengths and where are our opportunities to grow and enhance student performance. And finally, as we have all said at some point or another, especially Dr. Yannicone, Monday night, 5 o'clock, a public opportunity to talk more about these results in our academic affairs meeting. That is virtual. We would love to have community and board member attendance. Like everyone referenced, everyone has worked incredibly hard over the last few years, right? Families and kids at home, kids coming into school and reacclimating to social interactions, teachers, support personnel, all our professional staff, and administrators and our members of our school board. This is a community effort. I'm grateful for everything people have done, but we're hopeful that you're seeing the growth and positive impacts that we've had and areas for us to move forward. And I'm happy to take any questions, or members of our team are happy to take any questions that you might have.
Open it up for any questions or comments. Dr. Taratusky.
I want to echo your comments about all of the work that's entailed in looking at all the data, comparing it over time, digging in, trying to figure out what's going on with the kids who are not meeting those benchmarks, and what's happening with kids who are meeting the benchmark. So just a couple of thoughts, and not really like, I won't be able to be at the academic affairs committee meeting. So I apologize for that. But again, my thanks to the team, and I'm happy to see that you're going to be including like teachers in starting to learn that data analysis piece, because that's really critical. The math discrepancies that were highlighted kind of across the board, and not at all comments, not at all meant to be criticism, but just thinking, and I'm sure that you've all thought of this, but I'm curious about our curriculum change, our curriculum that happened several years ago. We moved to a new math curriculum with the intention of really supporting and building math competence across the district. So this doesn't necessarily require an answer, but I'm wondering if that's being looked at and if we're thinking about where that is. Then my other thought is around math and what that looks like across the county and the state in terms of the PSSA performance, and at the district level and the state level, is there any discussion about what those scores look like? Because there seems to be such a discrepancy between, and I'm assuming, as far as I know, STAR is nationally normed. Yeah, so the national norm performance of students versus our state performance of students. And, you know, it raises that kind of age-old question about teaching to the test and test performance versus building skill and competence for our students. And, you know, I want to be mindful that while there is importance to that PSSA score, and we want to make sure that we are understanding that for our curriculum and instruction, we also want to make sure that our kids are learning in spite of that somewhat. So I just want to raise those concerns for thought and consideration. So
thank you. If it's okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We will certainly be looking at our Envision program and the extent to which where we believe the data is accurate and reflective. So as an example, if I'm looking at the high school data, we have other data points. We have the PSAT, we have the SAT, we have the ACT, we have AP exams. And so we have multiple data points at that level. And one of the things that Dr. McLaurin pointed out in particular in grades 3, 4, and 5, where we've had children have had several years of Envision but again, over the course of the pandemic, is the extent to which we're seeing a misalignment between our Envision results and STAR. We need to pick that apart and see, for example, as Mr. Fuller said, are we seeing conventions and vocabulary as a strength all the way through? And how does that tie to our work and journeys relative to geodes and all the other options that we have for foundational instruction for students? So absolutely, this is all part of what we're going to be picking apart with the team as we move forward. One of the things that from the state we've been cautioned about is that they recognize that it's been a trend in the state not to focus on the standardized tests over the last few years. And so not to get too alarmed about the numbers. So as you heard, while we don't like to see 45%, it's twice that of the state level. Now, if I'm an assessor and only 1 in 5 students are meeting proficiency, I question the assessment, quite frankly, or what it is that's happening statewide. So these are bigger questions for even beyond us. And thankfully, Dr. Johnston attends our regular county instructional council meetings where there are broader conversations about what are the math curricula that we're all using? Are we seeing any trends? And so looking at that county data, looking at the state data, and even looking at national data. There was an article in Education Week several weeks ago about the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, which has been in place for decades and decades. And there's a pause on the test because they're in free fall and they're not sure why. And so you're correct that national data and state data is concerning. And then we have a question about how our children are doing. So we're looking at all measures, STAR, end of course performance, as well as more of these national tests at the end, like PSATs and SATs. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Again, not so much. I mean, there are questions in there, but they're, bigger, clearly bigger than can be answered in one presentation.
Absolutely.
And require just much more discussion. So those things I just share as I'm, hearing things and thinking.
Absolutely. And I do also want to point, yes. And I do want to point out, as Dr. McLaurin and Dr. Markle mentioned, you may recall that one of the uses of our ESSER funds was the hiring of 2 of our math specialists. Mm-hmm. And so it's been terrific. I was able to attend a professional learning session with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers. Each grade level was meeting with the math specialist in order to tease out their data and really dive into some of the sub scores and start to think about what are some trends we're seeing, where are we delivering this instruction, and how can we make sure that students have seen material in a timely fashion.
Right.
Yeah. So the math specialists are going to be a big help for us at the elementary level. And so it's been a good use of our ESSER funds.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you all.
It's a great question. Any other comments or questions? I do have one other, maybe for Dr. Johnson. What should we anticipate, right? I mean, if this was a year we said, let's benchmark, get a good sense of how we're recovering through, the impacts of the pandemic, what should we expect in terms of updates relative to those action plans that have been thoughtfully developed at each of the schools? So we're not just waiting for the next assessment date and backward looking, but have a forward looking sense of the progress against each of these action plans.
We administer our universal screening measures 3 times a year. So our next administration would be in the winter. So what we can easily do is do that at Academic Affairs, where we talk a little bit about those specific trends that we're noticing and some ways in which we're looking at this. And we can certainly provide updates and any other regularity that the board would appreciate, and that we have them. I think the hard part is the big measures take a while to get to them. And so Dr. Rittenhouse and I, for example, the keystones are administered at the end of course in the winter. So we just talked about, let's find out what those results look like before we change so many things, so that we can sort of quantify, are the changes that we're making by working with students to help them understand what the test is for, does that change their performance? Like if we do subtle changes, does that make a difference also? So I think as we start to pay attention to it, we're talking with our staff more, people understand it better. I think we have some anticipation that our students will rise to the occasion as they have historically.
Okay, great. I do think at an upcoming series of academic affairs, I think even a confidence level against each of those key action areas and just providing that, yes, we're seeing progress through behaviors, through assessments, I think would be really valuable. And then I think post that next assessment period, having another discussion at the board level so the public can hear how things are progressing would be really helpful.
Absolutely, our pleasure to do so.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for the very comprehensive view of the action plan.
Sorry that it's 8:20.
Board has done
Thank
its
you.
part to be concise this evening.
Oh, I know whose fault it is. I know where the situation sits.
All right. Dr. Unicon, does that conclude the administrative reports? Very good. We will move into our section for public comment on agenda items, noting our agenda is actually quite light this evening. We'll see if there are any public comments signed up in the room.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bedard. There are two people who have signed up to speak on agenda items in the room. I don't know if they're still here. Keisha Bronson, she's still here. I don't see her. And Angela BLTV, I don't see her either. Okay. So that noted.
Oh, they just signed up to their updates.
Right. So that said, I don't see anyone else signed up to speak in person. If anyone online wishes to speak on an agenda item, I do see two hands raised. Madeline Watson, if you can hear me, can you let us know where you live in the township? And please keep it, as Mr. Bedard said, to 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm here. I'm in Winmore, 1413 Cromwell Road. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. I just I wanted to ask again. I brought up all of the money that was received in ESSER funding in multiple rounds, and was told it was for COVID and this and that, and recovery for the students, that it wasn't going to equity or any of these things. I was called a liar. It turned out I wasn't a liar. But my main concern is all of that money you guys still have. My son was 2 grade levels ahead in math. I got a tutor for him in the last semester of last year. He was in Algebra 1 in 7th grade. He went from getting D's to getting an A in the last semester. I begged everyone for a tutor. I asked the principal, I asked the Mary Jo Yancone, I asked the teachers. No one would provide a tutor. I had to hold him back now. So now he's repeating the grade. Why isn't there tutoring? These children are falling behind. Last time I checked, scoring at 50% was failing. Why aren't any tutors being provided to help these kids? And you get all this money for equity. You want to talk about it. I have a brown kid who you let fall behind a year. Why aren't you providing tutors? You have the money for it.
You, of course, but I should know, Ms. Watson, this is not, there's nothing on the agenda that specifically speaks to either ESSER funds or tutoring for students. That said, I'll leave it to Mr. Bedard, but I think you're commenting.
You're talking about academic success rates, and someone did mention ESSER funds. And why weren't they used so that my son didn't fall behind? Why aren't they being used now so that he's ahead and the students aren't scoring at 50%?
That's fair, Ms. Watson. Thank you for your comment. And you had said you are in contact with the school administrators?
I've asked over 20 times for a tutor.
Okay. I mean, that is a topic best handled with the administrator for the building. But thank you very much for the comment.
So no tutors. Great.
Next, it looks like Mary Ellen Reeves, your hand is up. If you would please join us and just let us know where you live in the township.
Hi, good evening, Mary Ellen Reeves, Station Avenue, North Hills. First of all, I'd like to thank the teachers and the administration for your hard work to really get students where they need to be and become competitive in the county as well as the state. It doesn't go unrecognized that this has been an unprecedented time and that, it's been difficult for students. Thank you for admitting that. Thank you for the teachers, your hard work. I really, really, really do appreciate that. One thing I'd like to ask is, where will I be able to access this excellent slideshow presentation that was presented this evening? Would that be available online, or how would I be able to see that? Because it was quite small on the device I'm looking at, so I wasn't really able to really see that.
That's a fair question, Ms. Reeves. I'm going to ask Dr. Anacone to address where the presentation will be available.
Hi, Mrs. Reeves. Yes, the recording for the entire meeting, as you know, which will include the presentation, as well as a link to the slides, will be on the website by the end of the week.
Okay. Wasn't sure about that. Thank you, Dr. Anacone.
Absolutely, no problem.
I appreciate that. And just couple other things. A 45% square math. I mean, look, you've acknowledged that it's not acceptable regardless of who, or where, whatever children we compare this to, regardless at this juncture. I am actually particularly sensitive to this as a woman that works in science and technology. I mean, math is the foundation in which science and technology is built. If you don't know math, it's very hard to progress on to these types of careers and become a professional in this environment. And, again, I appreciate the hard work that has been done. I applaud the work the teachers have done during this unprecedented time to keep students engaged in learning. However, just a question, has there been any consideration, and again, I am not a parent, I'm a concerned citizen, so please correct me if I don't understand what has actually been going on. Has there been any consideration for extra instructional time, such as one-on-one tutoring, additional school days, extended school days, or summer school? Because it may be the key in helping students catch up. I mean, because I know that the teachers work so hard, and that 45% is probably very difficult for them to actually hear because they do such a great job. And I know that recently Congress has actually allocated $190 billion to schools to deal with the pandemic. So I really ask you at this time to consider the use of those funds, if possible, or available, to be spent with extra teaching time in mind. Reversing the educational damage wrought by the pandemic, and actually the ensuing lockdown, is essential as quickly as possible. I will be interested to hear the plans to enhance actual student performance going forward. I don't know that was included in that presentation, but perhaps that will be in future presentations, and maybe you can give me some insight as to how you plan on addressing that.
Ms. Reeves, that was an excellent comment. I'm going to go ahead and ask the team, as part of the follow-up that the board has asked for, to make sure that your point specifically around additional education time and specialized learning and development is part of those action plans, which I did hear as part of, at least some of the school plans.
Sure.
So that I'll ask the team to review that in the upcoming academic affairs meeting. Appreciate you.
I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reeves. I don't see any other hands raised. If anyone who's joining us online would like to talk on an agenda item, please raise your hand. I don't see any hands.
All right. We will move into the business of the evening. First couple of items are fun and easy. We have approval of minutes from prior meetings. First up is approval of minutes from our September 6, 2022 interim hybrid board meeting. Recommended action. It's quite obvious. Board of School Directors approves the board minutes from September 6, 2022 interim hybrid board meeting minutes. Is there a motion? And a second? Second. Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of passing the board minutes from September 6th, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion will pass. Our next up is approval of minutes from our September 20th, 2022 regular hybrid board meeting. Board of School Directors approves the board minutes from September 20th, 2022 regular hybrid board meeting minutes. Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor of passing the minutes from September 20th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will pass. Next up is our approval of the treasurer's report. Recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the September 30th, 2022 treasurer's report in the file attachment, September treasurer's report. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Tied for a motion. Is there a second? Any comments or questions? All right. All those in favor of the treasurer's report passing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass. Moving into our human resources section, up for personnel and HR contracts. First, personnel. The recommended action. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: certified personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, extra pay for extra responsibilities 2022-2023, and conference workshop attendance. Is there a motion? Thank you. In a second. Any comments or questions on our personnel file this evening? All those in favor of passing tonight's personnel file, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Personnel will pass. We have two academic affairs topics this evening, both overnight trips for approval. First is the Thespian State Board in Lansdale, PA. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves Marlene Thornton and N. Solomon to attend the Thespian State Board overnight in Lansdale, PA on December 1st, 2022 to assist with conference setup and attend evening meetings to plan and run the conference during the weekend at North Penn High School. Is there a motion? And a second? Any comments or questions on this overnight trip? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? First overnight trip with the Thespian State Board will pass. The second overnight trip is the Thespian Troop 1154. Our recommended action is the Board of School Directors approves Thespian Troop 1154 to attend the overnight trip to the University of Indiana in Bloomington, Indiana, from June 18th to June 23rd, 2023, to participate in the 2023 International Thespian Festival. Is there a motion? And a second? Any comments or questions?
Question. Is there more information that's going to come out later? I feel like, aren't there usually attachments with this type of thing?
We do have the full trip application. If you'd like to see it, I'd be happy to have that attached.
Just out of curiosity, yeah.
Sure.
Is that anything would hold you up from wanting to vote on it this evening? Okay. Very good. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of passing the overnight trip for the Thespian Troop 1154, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The overnight trip will pass with a follow-up to provide the full detail on the overnight application. Our third under academic affairs. No. Whole new section, guys. No finance tonight, no policy tonight, but we're going right to property. We have one item under property, our interstate contract addendum. Recommended action, the Board of School Directors approves the contract addendum between the School District of Springfield Township and Interstate Maintenance Corporation for cost of service not to exceed $8,619 per month pending final solicitor review. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any comments or questions? All those in favor of our interstate contract addendum, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion will pass. All right, we'll move to our final section for public comment on non-agenda items. We'll see if there are anyone signed up in room. It looks like no. We'll scan the room for hands. Scan online for hands.
Thank you, Mr. Bedard. If, as Mr. Bedard said, if anyone online does want to speak on any non-agenda item, please raise your hand and just let us know where you live in the township, and please keep your comment to 3 minutes. Don't see any hands.
That I see no hands, we will move to our future meeting date announcements. We have a future board meeting dates coming up. An interim board meeting on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. This is a hybrid board meeting. We have a regular board meeting on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. This is also a hybrid board meeting. All of these meetings will still be held in the Freeze Memorial Lobby until we relocate the meetings in the future. More announcements to come on that. And I believe between those 2 dates is a very important day, which is voting day. So please do make your plans to get to the polls. We have future committee meeting dates coming up as well. A policy committee meeting will happen on Monday, October 14th, 2022 at 8 a.m. That's fully virtual, so everyone can participate bright and early. We have an academic affairs committee meeting on Monday, October 24th, 2022 at 5 p.m. This is also a virtual meeting to allow for inclusion. Ooh, which one? Thank you. I'm going to amend what I said. Our policy committee meeting is Monday, October 24th at 8 a.m., not the 14th, as I previously said. This will be published on the website so that you can correct my error. Action-packed day that Monday, October 24th. For policy, start with your policy, end with your academic affairs. And then on November 3rd, it is the crowd favorite finance committee meeting, Thursday, November 3rd. That's an 8 a.m. Virtual meeting so that everyone can join bright and early. With that, I think we will close out this evening's event. I do want to open it up for any comments or questions from the board before we close the meeting. I do have one, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Yannicone. I can sense that you want to make a closing comment. What I want to say is it was really nice to see a deep focus on academic performance this evening. I do think that is an area obviously so close to why we're all here, why you as administrators and teachers and owners of these schools and their performance. I'm really excited about digging into the data and holding ourselves accountable through the course of this year to make progress there. So I just wanted to send a note of appreciation. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Yannicone.
Sure. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to everybody in the public who's made comments, as well as to the board, and just highlight a couple of quick answers for the board, because I don't want you to walk away if you can't go to academic affairs and not have the information. We agree that the opportunity for students to access their teachers for tutoring and for interventions is really important. I want to just remind the community and the board, over the last 2 summers, we've offered at no cost to our community members Spartan Academies in ELA and math. We've had students in particular at the elementary schools avail themselves of those opportunities for multi-day and multi-week tutoring and direct instruction from our own district teachers. This year at the high school, our flex period from last year has become a lunch and learn, where the students have direct access to their teachers. So we actually reworked the high school schedule so that our students could access their teachers for intervention and support right within the school day. They don't have to worry about staying late or missing activities. And at the middle school, I was able to participate at last week. Our teachers, in response to seeing some of these areas of need and performance, they're actually targeting the middle school flex period which we had last year. And we had students grouped at the time, but this year we're actually assisting the students in being able to access that extra support within the context of the school day during flex. And so I do want you to know that we are cognizant of some of the community remarks. It's an important area for us to be able to provide direct support to students. And we have done so for the last 2 years using ESSER funds, and will continue to do so this year. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions before we close it out this evening? All right, if I'm not mistaken, it's 8:36, so there's still 24 minutes available for ordering food from Enza to support the Springfield Township Educational Foundation. I believe we have some pizza at home waiting for me. And with that, guys, thank you very much for this evening's event with so much content, and go Phillies. We'll wrap it for the evening.